sunglasses line he named Coyote sunglasses, after the island he lived on. Within this line, you're going to find a smaller line called Coyote Bobs, and these were the world's first sunglasses to be designed to float on top of the water. The frames are designed to hold up the heavy lenses, and therefore, if you lose them while fishing, you can finish up what you're doing, look back at the water, and they'll still be floating on top for you. The next island I'll direct your attention to is once again over on your left. It's going to be a lot closer this time. This is known as Deer Island. It's named after a small herd of deer that live there year-round. Now this island was once owned by a man named George Miller. George Miller was an amateur archaeologist. You can compare him to an Indiana Jones. He would travel around the world collecting artifacts that he'd keep in a library on this island. Now in that library you could have found a couple katana swords, a full suit of armor, and one of the copies of the original Gutenberg Bible. If you don't know what that is the first book to ever be printed on a printing press. There's estimated to be only around 10 left in the world. Now he thought all these artifacts would be safe on the island, however tragedy struck when one day lightning hit the library and burned the entirety of it to the ground, leaving only some stone structures you can still see on the island today. Now all the artifacts were lost, unfortunately, during that fire. The estimated loss of all of them together came to be around $20 million worth. Now upon his death, George Miller did grant this island over to the Skull and Bones Society, which he was a part of. If you don't know what that is, the Skull and Bones Society is a secret off-campus fraternity associated with Yale University. Each year, around 12 students of the Yale junior class are selected to join this society based not on their academics, but rather on their leadership capabilities. Now, to this day, the Skull and Bones Society still owns Deer Island. It's unsure what they do exactly. They won't tell us. They like keeping their secret society, well, secret. Some people like to speculate it may be a ritual place for new members to come and stay the night. However, I'm more apt to believe it's simply a vacation spot for current members and their families. As I mentioned, there is a small herd of deer that do live on Deer Island, and that often brings up the question, what kind of animals you here in Rockport is that small white church. Aspen's Roman Catholic Church of St. Francis. It's actually the oldest wooden church here in Eastern Ontario. This played a very important role back during the Prohibition era of the 1920s. During that time, alcohol was made illegal in America. You couldn't manufacture, sell, or drink it. However, it was perfectly legal to do all three of those things over in Canada. So what people would do is that they'd make alcohol over Canada, they'd store it in the basement of that church, and overnight ship it illegally over to America to be sold. When authorities would approach these rum runners, asking them what they were doing going to the church so often, they'd look back at them and say, "We're getting holy water." So right after Rockport, you're going to be entering what's known as the Canadian Millionaires Row. It's called that based on the Millionaires Row that is over in America that we'll see later in our tour. However, you'll find that there's two major differences between this side and the American side. The first side's difference is that these houses are going to be a lot more modern than the ones on the American side. And this is because of building restrictions that were put in place in Canada that prevented people from building summer homes for almost 50 years. The second difference you'll see between this side and the American side is that there's going to be a lot more trees. And this is because of laws in Canada that state you can't cut down trees willy-nilly when building your house. You can only cut down enough in order to build your foundation and have one path going around your house. Any trees that might be in your way of viewing the St. Lawrence River, you're just going to have to live around. Additionally, once you pass Rockport, there's actually going to be entering one of the deepest sections of the river. Beneath our boat's going to sit between 200 to 250 feet of water in what's known as the Canadian Palisades. Now, not to mention that it's very deep here, a lot of people like to ask me, what's the average depth of the St. Lawrence River? And to answer that, it's quite complicated. You see, unlike most rivers, which are carved out over time by erosion and have a very level bed, the St. Lawrence River was quickly carved out by glaciers during the last ice age. So if you were to drain all the water out of this basin, it would look more like a miniature mountain range, with the tops of the mountains forming the islands you see around you. So it's very hard to take an average since it fluctuates so wildly and randomly. However, the range is much more accurate, giving you an idea on the river. The range is less than a foot at some of the shoals to 258 feet being the deepest recorded depth in our river. So I've been talking your ear off ever since we left the dock, so I'm actually going to take my first break here. As I said before, I'll come around and ask if anybody has any questions. If you do, just raise your hand, I'll come right over. I love answering questions. I can answer anyone with a very degree of accuracy. And I'll pick back up once we start approaching the Thousand Islands Bridge system. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy.
Pag-wait mo sana kalitarang may bago.
start bridge 1, year 1, go through bridges until you get bridge 5, year 5, just to go all the way back to the beginning to start all over again. My great-grandfather was actually a bridge painter. He was working on this. He actually fell off the bridge once while painting on the first span on the American side. He has passed away. However, that has nothing to do with the fall. In fact, you can still see bridge workers working on the bridge up to this day. It is a year-round job. You can sometimes see them up on the wires or hanging down in the cage. I don't see any out right now, however. Oh, goodness gracious, they did on me. So these bridges are actually built to be walked on if you like to walk over the water. There's a sidewalk on either side of it. However, they are suspension bridges, which means they sway as the water comes back over them and the wind blows them. So if you have vertigo or if you're just scared of heights like I am, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Well, once you pass underneath the bridge system, you enter what's known as whirlpool dam. If you look carefully off the edges of the boat, you can actually see small whirlpools forming in the water. This is because the water here is very turbulent. This is where the Canadian Palisades begins. So the water goes from 20 feet to over 200 feet, creating an underwater waterfall that is larger than Niagara Falls. So it churns up the water pretty well around here. It actually is one of the few areas that doesn't get completely frozen over since it's so turbulent. And on average, the current in this area runs at about 6 knots. If you don't speak sailor speed, that's very fast. Now we're currently traveling between 2 Canadian national parks. Over on your right, you're going to have the Ivy League Park. This is part of the mainland, so it's accessible by both car and boat. And over on your left, you'll have Georgina Island. Now, Georgina Island is only accessible by boat. Despite the fact that there's a section down on it, there is no exit ramp on the street.
By the time the water.
So as I turn into this small section, we're actually going to be going into what's known as Runway Channel. If you look to your left, you can actually see it very well. This is the only section which the river runs backward. See the water here is very turbulent. It gets pushed up against Georgina Island and is redirected backwards. It's the only section of the river to be approaching my favorite one right now. Over on your left, you're going to see this very tiny island with the one tree and the 15 sign on it. This is known as Tom Thumb, and it is the smallest audited island in the Thousand Islands region. You may look at me and wonder, how on earth does that count as an island? There's actually 3 requirements in order to be considered one. It must have at least 5 square feet in size, must be out of the water 365 days of the year, and must have at least 1 tree and some other form of greenery. Tom Thumb barely passes all 3 of these and is considered an island. Now, those 3 requirements were put in place by National Geographic after they came up to this area to do an audit just to see how many islands there were in the Thousand Islands region. And this is where I like to play a small game of hands. By a show of hands, how many do you think that they came up with less than 1,000 islands? Alright, how many do you think there have to be more than 1,000 islands? Okay, and how many of you really don't care? Well, if you answered to more than 1,000 islands, you would be correct. There's actually 1,864 islands audited in total. Now, another question I get when we pass by Tom Thumb is, what is that 15 sign on it? That 15 sign is actually the speed limit in the area. Since we are in Canada, it's going to be 15 kilometers an hour, and it counts for every boat that is 40 feet and up, including this one. So speed limits are heavily enforced on the water in the areas they are needed. For every mile or kilometer you could be caught going over the speed limit, you could be fined up to $1,000. And this is because the weight you may leave behind can cause damage to waterfront property and boats attached to their dock. However, this does mean that certain areas of the river don't have a speed limit since there's no docks or boats to worry about, and you could go as fast as you want on those sections. So off to your left, you're going to notice this bright pink house. This is known as the Halfway House, and it's owned by the retired Canadian football star Rick Tucker, who played for the Rough Riders. Now, we're not exactly sure why he painted this house pink. We have 2 running theories. The first theory is he painted it to match his favorite Hawaiian resort. The second reason, which I like better, is that he asked his grandchildren what color should Papa paint his new house. Looking at it again, you may guess he has more granddaughters than grandsons. Oh wait, I never got to thank everyone for your wonderful questions during my break. I really enjoyed answering them all. It's so nice to get such unique questions, although sometimes some questions are better than others. I have gotten quite a few silly ones before. Some of them include, do you work here? How long is your 2-hour tour? Is this salt water in the river? Will we be seeing whales? And which side is the best side for me to see the Statue of Liberty? Now, another common question I get that I do like answering, however, is what do people on these islands need for utilities, namely water, electricity, and sewage? Now, for water, it's very simple. I'm going to direct your attention off the left below. And I'll direct your attention off the right above. And I'll remember we are on a boat, so yes, there is water. But in all honesty, the St. Lawrence River is one of the cleanest rivers in the world. It's at around 95% purity. To put it in perspective, your drinking water only needs to be 93% pure before it can be bottled and sold. So a lot of these houses around the area will have a pipe from their house down to the water, which they'll pump water out to use for laundry, showering, dishes, etc. However, you'll notice a lot of these houses, including our boat stores, also only drink bottled water, which we have right here. And this is because there are animals living in the water, so it can't be completely sanitary for drinking. And it is a very heavy forested area, which means we question I get sometimes is why don't people use solar panels often up here? And we have two major reasons why they aren't as popular as they could be. The first reason is that they're on an island, so they already have limited space, so they don't want to fill that using solar panels. The second reason is they're very expensive, and we have harsh winters up in this area. Most of these houses around the area are just summer homes, which means they'll be closed down for the winter months up until late spring. So they're not going to be able to come back to their islands to check to see if their solar panels are going to survive the winter. Another common theme you'll see these harsh winters cause is a style of architecture called the A-frame home. You'll see them around in most of these houses. The tallest part of the house will be in the middle, with the edges of the roof sloping off and away. This way, when snow lands on the roof and ice eventually gets heavy enough, it will slide off the structure rather than through it, giving you a brand new sunroof. And finally, people ask me, what do people do for sewage on this river? People ask me that in fears that it might be in the water. Not to worry, that is 100% illegal. People won't be doing that. However, you may have noticed a lot of these islands are made of pure granite rock, which is very difficult to dig down into. So instead, they're not going to have an in-ground septic tank. They'll have an above-ground septic tank. These are going to be large drums they'll pump their gray water into, and once they're full, they're going to pay a barge to come by and pump them out. Now, I do have a favorite barge company out of all of them on the river, which might sound weird, but they're called the Honey Dippers. They run the Honey Barge. I like them because they have a few jokes on their shirt. The front's going to say, we're the number one, the number two business. And the back's going to say, we take crap from everybody. So if you look off to your left, you can actually see one of the exit points for these hydroelectric cables I talked about earlier. It comes out of the water and turns into a telephone pole that will run around the island. You'll also see that danger do not anchor sign right next to it. This is because the wires are very close to the surface of the water in that area. You don't want anyone dropping anchor and severing the line. This would be very expensive to replace and could be dangerous for the boaters in the water. While I've been talking about my tour, but I've been ignoring them. If you look off to your right, you'll notice this white pole with the green top. Some of them you may have noticed had a red dock instead. Now these are channel markers. As I mentioned before, the St. Lawrence Seaway was constructed over on the American side, but before then, cargo ships would come around this area in order to travel in and out of the Great Lakes. Now since the construction of the St. Lawrence Seaway, this place did close down. However, they did leave the channel markers in. And this is because it was simply easier to do so. However, you can still use these markers to travel and navigate along the river, so long as you remember the 3 R's of navigation. Be red, right, returning. If the red channel markers are on your right, you're going to be returning from sea, which means you're going to be heading inland toward the Great Lakes. Alternatively, green means going. So if the green channel markers are on your right, you're going to be going out to sea. Little closed in the wintertime